How could I have anticipated that the experience awaiting me would alter my life in ways I had never imagined? It began as an ordinary day. Nothing seemed unusual until I entered that room. The door was slightly ajar, and the instant I saw it, something within me shifted. In that very moment, I could have turned back, pretended I hadn't noticed, and walked away, but I didn't. Because the second I realized what I was witnessing, I understood nothing would ever be the same again. It all started on a quiet afternoon when David was out working, leaving the house eerily still. The only sound came from upstairs, a faint noise drawing my attention like a magnet. At first, I assumed it was Ryan in his room, lost in thought as usual. Perhaps he needed a drink or some conversation, so I decided to check on him. As I ascended the stairs, curiosity gnawed at me. When I reached his room, I noticed the door was slightly open. I paused briefly, took a deep breath, and was about to call out when I saw him. He sat on his bed with his laptop resting on his lap, its glow illuminating his face while his hands darted across the keys. For a brief moment, I thought he might be watching a movie, something thrilling like an action flick. However, as I moved closer, a sinking feeling settled in my stomach. That's when I fully grasped what Ryan was doing. The reflection on the screen hit me like a cold wave, draining all color from my face. Ryan quickly attempted to compose himself, lowering the volume on his laptop, but it was already too late. The damage was done. The second our eyes met, his cheeks flushed crimson, revealing his shame. "I'm sorry," he stammered, averting his gaze. I stood rooted to the spot, unsure of how to respond. Words escaped me as conflicting emotions surged through me: shock, embarrassment, and something deeper, something I couldn't yet define. Without another word, I fled, retreating to the safety of my room. But even after closing the door behind me, the image lingered in my mind, haunting me. What had I just witnessed? And why did it stir something within me that I'd buried long ago? The following days were filled with awkward silences and uneasy glances. Dinner became a silent affair, the clinking of utensils against plates filling the otherwise deafening quiet. Both Ryan and I avoided each other whenever possible, exchanging only fleeting looks and nods. Every time our eyes met, the memory of that moment threatened to resurface, making us both uncomfortable. One afternoon, Ryan finally broke the tension. He sat down beside me on the couch, his expression hesitant but determined. "Claire, regarding the other day. I'm deeply embarrassed. I never intended for things to unfold this way. Please, let's not let this ruin what we have," he confessed, his voice unsteady yet earnest. Taking a steadying breath, I responded gently. "Ryan, believe me, I've experienced my fair share of embarrassing moments," offering him a small, reassuring smile. His expression softened slightly, though I sensed there was more beneath the surface. With a soft chuckle, he lowered his gaze and remarked, "I suppose we're even now." Confusion clouded my thoughts. "What do you mean?" I asked, curiosity piqued. For a moment, his demeanor shifted, realizing he may have revealed too much. Rubbing the back of his neck, he hesitated before murmuring almost inaudibly, "I've seen you in a similar light. You just didn't know about it." A chill ran down my spine as the weight of his admission struck me. "What?" I whispered, barely able to process his words. His face reddened further as he continued, "I never told you because I was too ashamed, but it stayed with me. It was my secret, a memory I couldn't erase." An inexplicable warmth spread through me, stirring emotions I couldn't name. His confession did more than expose a hidden truth. It shattered any remaining barriers between us. As our gazes locked, everything changed irrevocably. From that point forward, the dynamic between us shifted dramatically. No longer separated by invisible walls, we found ourselves drawn closer, sharing moments that seemed trivial on the surface but carried layers of meaning beneath. Movies became a new ritual, bringing us nearer despite the unresolved feelings lingering between us. There were times when accidental touches, his arm brushing against mine or our hands grazing, ignited sensations deep within me, unsettling yet undeniable. Though I pushed these feelings aside, pretending they didn't matter, they persisted, growing stronger with every passing day. One restless night, sleep eluded me. My mind fixated on one person, Ryan. If he harbored feelings for me, I needed to confront them before matters escalated beyond repair. Driven by this resolve, I rose from bed, my heart thundering in my chest, and made my way to his room. Finding his door slightly open, I peeked inside. Instead of focusing on him, something unexpected caught my attention. Pausing mid-step, I grappled with conflicting emotions before retreating quietly to my own room. Yet, everything felt altered. Life unfolded unpredictably after that night. Despite my best efforts to suppress the connection forming between Ryan and me, it only grew stronger. Days turned into weeks, blurring the lines separating right from wrong. Then came the fateful evening when Alex arrived home unexpectedly, stumbling through the door in a state of intoxication. Objects crashed to the floor as he navigated clumsily, their sounds loud enough to awaken David, though I knew he slept heavily. Acting swiftly, I exited my room and confronted Alex. Standing before him, I noted his unfocused eyes and the faint grin playing on his lips. "Claire, are you real?" he slurred, his words distorted by alcohol but carrying an unexpected sincerity. Summoning my courage, I grasped his arm firmly. "Alex, come on. You can't climb the stairs in this condition." "We need to stay quiet," I instructed, guiding him toward the kitchen. Hoping to help him sober up, I prepared coffee, yet his unwavering gaze and cryptic remarks unraveled something within me. Sitting at the kitchen table, Alex watched me intently. At one point, the cup slipped from his grasp, spilling its contents onto the counter. "Careful, Alex," I cautioned, rushing to clean up. But his drunken smirk returned. "Have you always been this kind-hearted?" he teased lightly. Realizing time was running short, we couldn't risk waking David. I ushered him upstairs cautiously. Upon entering his room, Alex's movements grew increasingly erratic. Struggling to undress, he required assistance. As my fingers brushed against the buttons of his shirt, the tension between us became palpable. The air grew thick, charged with unspoken desires. Pausing mid-action, Alex met my gaze, his intensity unmistakable. "I won't pretend anymore, Claire," he declared softly yet resolutely. My heart raced as I absorbed his meaning. "Do you remember?" he pressed, his tone deepening. "We crossed boundaries once, and you haven't forgotten." Overcome with emotion, I stepped back instinctively. "This isn't appropriate," I protested weakly, though my voice betrayed uncertainty. Alex's smile faltered slightly, lacking innocence. "We abandoned pretense long ago, Claire. Stop denying the truth." Gradually, he closed the distance between us until his presence loomed over me. Reaching out, his fingers traced my cheek tenderly. Unable to resist, I leaned into his touch. Deep down, I acknowledged the truth in his words. Before either of us could retreat, our lips met in a kiss brimming with pent-up passion. Every ounce of restraint dissolved in that instant, leaving behind pure, raw emotion. Trembling, I allowed myself to surrender fully. Sliding the straps of my dress off my shoulders, I whispered, "You're right, Alex. Let's stop fighting this." Lying back on the bed, I embraced the inevitable, knowing there was no turning back. Alex hovered above me, his voice soothing. "Don't fear this moment. Everything is as it should be." Though initially hesitant, I admitted my apprehension. "I'm scared," I confessed softly. Ignoring my trepidation, Alex reassured me with gentle words, ensuring our actions remained discreet. Together, we navigated the storm of emotions sweeping through us, finding solace in each other's arms. Reality eventually crept back in, forcing us to confront the implications of our actions. Guilt gnawed at me, especially knowing that David trusted me completely. How could I betray him like this? Yet, every time I looked at Ryan, the guilt faded, replaced by a yearning I couldn't ignore. Our secret liaison continued in stolen moments, hidden behind closed doors and whispered promises. We lived in constant fear of discovery, always aware that one wrong move could shatter everything. Despite the risk, neither of us wanted to walk away, not yet, at least. Then came the fateful evening when James returned home unexpectedly, walking in on Ryan and me in a compromising position. His face went pale, shock quickly giving way to anger and betrayal. Without saying a word, James grabbed his keys and stormed out, leaving me stunned and heartbroken. Over the following days, guilt gnawed at me, especially knowing that David trusted me completely. How could I betray him like this? Yet, every time I looked at Ryan, the guilt faded, replaced by a yearning I couldn't ignore. Despite the risks, our bond grew stronger. Life doesn't stop for anyone, no matter how much we wish it would. As time passed, we navigated the complexities of our relationship, learning to navigate the guilt and uncertainty that came with it. Would we ever find true happiness together? Only time would tell. But for now, we chose to live in the present, cherishing each moment and embracing the unknown future ahead. That night, I had no idea just how much more complicated things would become. No matter what I did, the connection with Alex grew stronger with each passing day, blurring the lines between us. Eventually, David would find out everything. This story wasn't over yet. Please remember to like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more captivating content. As the days turned into weeks, the intensity of our bond deepened. Each stolen glance, each shared touch, brought us closer while simultaneously pulling us farther from the lives we once knew. There were moments when guilt reared its head, whispering reminders of the path we had strayed from. But those whispers were drowned out by the overwhelming pull we felt toward one another. One evening, as we lay entwined, Alex gazed at me with an expression that spoke volumes. "Do you ever think about what happens next?" he asked, his voice tinged with vulnerability. "I try not to," I admitted honestly. "Thinking too far ahead feels dangerous." He nodded, understanding my sentiment. "But maybe it's worth considering. Maybe we owe it to ourselves, and to David, to figure out where this goes." His words struck a chord within me. Was he right? Could we continue living in secrecy, or would the truth inevitably catch up with us? These questions haunted me long after he fell asleep, leaving me staring at the ceiling and wondering if I had the strength to face whatever lay ahead. Weeks later, the inevitable happened. David discovered our secret during a heated argument over unrelated matters. The moment his eyes met mine, I saw the pain reflected there, a pain I had caused. He left shortly afterward, moving out without another word. The silence that followed was deafening, forcing Ryan and me to confront the reality of our choices. For a while, guilt consumed me. I questioned whether the connection we shared was worth the cost. Yet, despite the turmoil, I couldn't deny the depth of my feelings for Ryan. We weren't perfect, and the road ahead promised challenges, but I knew one thing for certain: I didn't want to lose him. Together, we faced the consequences of our actions, rebuilding our lives amidst the wreckage. It wasn't easy, but perhaps that was the point. Love, lust, and regret intertwined in ways that defied logic, leaving scars and lessons that shaped who we became. And so, our story continued, not as the tidy narrative we might have hoped for, but as something messy, imperfect, and undeniably human.